Well, the Supreme Court's conservative majority signaled on Friday will likely strike down the Biden administration's vaccine mandate for federal employees and large private employers. The court heard more than 3 hours of lively argument on the specific authority of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and the Department of Health and Human Services. Conservative justices did not seem to think that OSHA has the legal power to require that businesses with 100 or more employees ensure that they are vaccinated, or that unvaccinated workers wear masks and show negative COVID test results weekly. Justice Clarence Thomas told the DOJ Solicitor General, quote, "You need to show a lot more than just to say a lot of bad things could happen." While Chief Justice John Roberts suggested the mandates were the responsibility of the states or Congress. Justice Elena Kagan was among the liberal justices offering a counter-argument.
Why isn't this necessary to abate a grave risk? This is a pandemic in which nearly 1 million people have died. It is by far the greatest public health danger that this country has faced in the last century. More and more people are dying every day. More and more people are getting sick every day. I don't mean to be dramatic here. I'm just sort of stating facts. And this is the policy that is most geared to stopping all this.
So, Jonathan Lear, we were talking before about putting things in context as far as the fact that 2 out of 3 hospitalizations where somebody has got a COVID case, they're hospitalized for reasons other than COVID. Certainly, this case is not being heard in a vacuum, and that obviously has much more of an impact than, say, whether this was a court case that came before the Supreme Court in, let's say, June or July of 2020. And also, it's not really that much of a surprise, is it, that the Roberts Court would tell states, for instance, Maine, okay, well, if you want to require vaccines for people that work in your hospitals and healthcare centers, that's totally fine. That's your business. Go ahead and do it. We'll uphold it. That's one thing. Agreeing to a nationwide OSHA regulation that hasn't gone through Congress, it seems to be a step higher for the Roberts Court. Are you expecting them to strike down this mandate?
Yeah, they were permissive of what Maine did. New York State, others said that's okay. States can do this. But certainly this is still a conservative majority court. And the Biden administration, people I talked to over the weekend, said they sort of saw this coming. They anticipate probably that they will lose this, that there won't be a national vaccine mandate here. And I think context is important. There are some hopeful signs here in the Northeast that Omicron is sort of plateauing now, and that maybe at its peak, that things will start to decline, that maybe this is the worst of it, and then in a couple of weeks we'll be out of it, and things will hopefully return to where we were pre-Omicron. It's just going so fast, and that's putting an incredible strain on hospitals now, no doubt. That's serious. But hopefully the thought is, public health experts say, it won't be here in the Northeast with us that much longer, a few more weeks. But, of course, the rest of the country remains another matter as it spreads west and hits pockets of the population that are far less vaccinated than in the Northeast. That's where it still stands to pose real trouble. But it comes at this decision, or coming decision, for the Biden administration comes as they're trying to surge tests across the country. And again, stay on this idea. Get vaccinated, get boosted. And particularly that booster seems key to warding off this particular variant of the coronavirus.
Right. And Mika, obviously, this is most likely not going to be the last variant.
Right.
We've been fortunate in many ways that this variant doesn't strike and is not as deadly as Delta or the original variant was. But we have to be preparing for the future, and we have to just plan for other variants to come. And so whatever legislation that we're passing on the state or the national level, whatever regulations, whatever our approach is to having the proper number of tests, we just have to assume they're going to be variants in the future, and we have to be better prepared for those variants than we were for Omicron.
And continue the push to have everybody vaccinated.
Right.
Joining us now, State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Ehrenberg, and host of the podcast On Brand with Donnie Deutsch. Donnie Deutsch, and Elise Jordan is still with us as well. Good to have you all on board this hour.
So, Dave, the Roberts Court, again, I'm not shocked by this. The Roberts Court says, okay, if a state's going to do it, if a state wants to pass legislation, cite it into law, that's fine. That's your business. We're the Supreme Court. We're not going to tell you what to do in your state legislature. And that really does define Roberts' view, for the most part, of where the Supreme Court sits in the scheme of things. Same thing with regulations. You want to pass this as a regulation, we're a little more skeptical. But if Congress wants to pass a law, we're not going to get in your way. Is that where the rubber hits the road here?
You got it, Joe. Not bad for a country lawyer. You called it right.
Country lawyer at that. Yeah, go ahead.
This is not about the legality of vaccine mandates. The Supreme Court in 1905 in the Jacobson versus Massachusetts case said that a state and local vaccine mandate was constitutional. This is more about whether Congress authorized federal executive branch agencies to mandate a regime of vaccinations and testing. And so it's going to come down to each individual justice's view of the role of the federal government. And it's also why elections have consequences, because all three of the Supreme Court picks from former President Trump are poised to rule with the other three conservatives, including Chief Justice Roberts, to block this mandate. And that would apply to 84 million workers across the country. And, Joe, it's not even a real mandate. This is a recommendation. If you don't want to get vaxxed, then you get tested every week. Plus, there's a bunch of other exceptions. It is ironic, by the way, that it's the same Supreme Court here that is also poised to overturn Roe versus Wade. You know, the Supreme Court that seems willing to empower states to restrict a woman's reproductive rights, that is now unwilling to allow federal COVID rules to override an individual's right to carry and spread the coronavirus. So you wonder why so many people think this high court is political. I think oftentimes they're right.
Well, the thing that I find confusing, though, is that if you leave this up to the states, we're going to have patches of the country that are unvaccinated, and it's clear the vaccines work. And it's not that just bad things are going to happen. Those who are unvaccinated die from, specifically, the coronavirus. So I'm having a hard time understanding why they're heading towards striking this down, Dave.
Yes, well, you know, this is political ideology. This is the conservative wing of the Supreme Court going to flex its muscle. But I do think, Mika, there's a little bit of good news here. I do think they are more likely than not to keep the mandate as it applies to healthcare workers. That's the second case that was before them. And again, it's not a total mandate, but it's closer when it comes to healthcare workers. We're talking about 10 million workers, and these are in healthcare facilities that get federal funding through the Medicare and Medicaid program. And there's a long history of the federal government saying, if you want our money, you got to play by our rules. And Justice Kagan, I think, won the day when she said, when you're a healthcare worker, the one thing that you cannot do is kill your patients. So I think when it comes to healthcare workers, that pseudo mandate is going to continue.
Well, it certainly should for healthcare workers. State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Ehrenberg, thank you so much. Donnie, I'm just curious, as a New Yorker, you know, we look and we're seeing what's happening with Omicron. Obviously, it is a crush for a lot of our hospitals. But again, in California, 2 out of 3 people that go into the hospitals these days with COVID don't even know they have it. They're going in for other reasons. They get tested, and it's pretty mild. In New York, more than half of the people that are hospitalized, that are being reported as hospitalized with COVID, really went into the hospital for different reasons. So we are very fortunate that this has been a more mild variant. But we really, let's face it, let's admit it, we dodged a bullet here. We weren't ready for testing. We weren't ready on a lot of different fronts, even though we've been doing this for a year and a half now as a country. How did we let that happen? How are we still stumbling through this as badly as we are as a nation?
Yeah, and the latest Supreme Court ruling is just one more example of that. I want to politicize this. First of all, in New York, it is rampant. It is everywhere, and it is just like you can't go anywhere without seeing somebody or knowing somebody. The good news is people do not seem to be getting as sick. To politicize this for a second, there's an opportunity here for the Democrats to attach this to a bigger platform of what I call protection. It seems as if everything the Republicans are doing, whether it's not properly protecting you against COVID, whether it's not properly protecting you against insurrection, whether it's not properly protecting you against tyranny, whether it's not properly protecting you against voting rights, there seems to be this kind of real opportunity for the Democrats to say, we are here to protect every aspect of your life, including your health and including democracy and everything in between. So I just kind of lifting this up 10,000 feet out of Omicron, a political opportunity for the Democrats.
Yeah, but Elise Jordan, we criticized Donald Trump for a year for not wanting to have a robust testing regime because he thought that if you tested somebody and they were positive, that drove the numbers up. And so he never wanted to nationalize those efforts. And yet, as Omicron exploded, we were woefully ill-equipped. There were lines all over New York City, all over the country. It was, I must say, it was shocking that the Biden administration allowed this to happen. How do we make sure that never happens again?
I still do not understand how at this stage in the pandemic, around Christmas time, it was virtually impossible to go to a healthcare office, to go to an urgent care and get any kind of test or to even purchase a rapid test over the counter at a local drugstore. And still today, you can't get in so many places of the country these critical tests. And I just don't understand how that wasn't a key part of the strategy to make sure that we had enough stock so that people who didn't want to infect other people, who wanted to make the right choices, could have some autonomy and some control over their movements based on their illness. I just don't understand how that was not a critical part of the equation here, Joe.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.